Hey, and welcome to Outside the Box. Here we are on Friday night, Blog Talk Radio with Freedom Reigns Radio. I'm your host, Kate of Gaia. You're listening to Outside the Box, and we're going to have one hell of a show tonight. And I'm trusting that that is Patrice that has called in on the line, so I'm going to make the line hot, and let's see if it's you. Just
It's
wait
Patrice.
for it. There you are.
Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I'm in a good
I can
spot.
hear you now. It's all good, love. Anyway, we're going to have a hell of a show tonight. We're waiting for Tony to try to get on here. He's been having internet issues in the UK where he's apparently getting knocked out for 10 minutes at a time. And I'm just hoping that actually people hear me because I have one hell of a time. You know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. You know, I was listening to the audio that you sent out by James Thomas. That was a good one to get caught up on. What he's got going on is good. The recent one that you sent out, they had a meeting, and he was talking, and he was saying a lot of things that reminders to people. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I just took you off my headset for hearing. I've got.
Because you're breaking up. You're breaking up to me. You sound choppy to me, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, you know the routine here, right?
Always interference.
Always. They don't like me talking, hon.
Right.
It's all good. You're coming through loud and clear, so that's all good.
Okay, that is good. I'm on a good connection right now. I'll just sit put. I saw a beautiful little fawn just ran across the park, and then shortly after her mother came and looked for her, so that was kind of a sweet little thing. So,
that's a beautiful...
I'm in a good spot. I'm in a good spot. I'll sit right here.
Excellent. So what's stuff been going on this week? You're on my email, so you're getting caught up with stuff in the now as it comes to me with that Meads versus Meads thing that and I say thing very loosely that Justice Rook, what a name, put out as a bit of hit piece, not a bit, as an attempt to undermine those that have got this game and are taking it to a whole new level that they're not liking, and they're running scared. They tipped their hand on this one.
Yep, I did read that. I read that today. That was good.
Yeah, and that was actually my essay from Wednesday that I had to fight to get through. That was my take on the Mead versus Meads, and in that forgive them not. They do know what they do, and They do. As a matter of fact, I wrote a thing today. I was reading that, and the Uniform Bond Code was a good document, and I was like, okay, there's the whole section in there about it being civil or criminal, and I've been arguing this point, when I was at war with the courts. Of course, like all of us, we come through this war zone thing. I remember at the seminar last month in Virginia with James Thomas, and at one point he said, how many here have ever have had some sort of problem in the courts? Every hand in the room went up. We wouldn't have been there if we hadn't if we hadn't been somehow gone through this fire, right? There's this leaping off of where you are trying to get to where you're going, and I was always arguing that the civil versus criminal, that it's criminal because it's deliberate. When they deliberately intend to harm you, that's what makes it criminal. So how do you prove the intent? Okay, there's a couple ways you can do that: by a pattern of practice, which shows by the pattern that they intend to do it again, or by codified practices, which are written in their manuals, like guardian ad litem practice manuals, or foreclosure manuals, and things like that, where they intend to follow what was written. The prescriptive guidance is written, or in training, when they provide training to the bar association or the bench, they provide these trainings. And there was a video that went out around today by a judge that's speaking out now in California about how she was trained to make those rulings, and she realizes it was a mistake, and she's left the bench, and she's a judge whistleblower, and she's like, yeah, we were trained to make these bad rulings. So, there's three different ways that you can prove intent, and once you've proven intent, that's what's that's where you can show that it was deliberate harm. That's where it becomes criminal, and not some sort of by accident or some sort of civil, bond thing. Well, we didn't mean to it. You were harmed, but it was inadvertent harm. No, this is deliberate harm that you, Kate, and James Thomas, and everyone else who's been paving the way, and those of us like me who are whistleblowers, and then we get retaliated on, and we kind of like retreat and regroup, and then we come out again and start whistleblowing, and it's harmful. It's deliberate harm that they do, and that's what makes it criminal. And
I couldn't agree more with you, hon. And here's the thing: when you were talking about all of the hands that went up in the room, the first thing I'd be doing is standing at the podium and looking for anyone that didn't have their hand up, and then I'd be kicking their asses out. No, you need to get out and live a little before you join this club.
Right. Like, you're right. You haven't done, any of the foundational training if you haven't been, wiped, on the floor of several courtrooms several times, many times too many to count, So, years. These things go on for years, these court cases, as you know. And then we find one another. Those of us of sort of like harm go, oh, that happened to you too, and then we knock heads and we start having this sort of meeting of the minds. But you guys have taken it to a whole nother level. I want to talk about, I don't know if you're ready for me to talk about, what happened. There was this, I went through that, and then I heard James Thomas on the radio show, I don't know, maybe earlier in the year, and tucked him away and went, wow, there's something powerful going on with that. And then he kind of disappeared for a while, which now I know he was doing all of that work, which led to the seminar, which is kind of why he was off radar for a while to people. And then everything converged for me, and it became possible for me to go to that seminar. I drove 2,000 miles, slept in my car. I'd already been on this sort of hardship escape from being, under total judicial tyranny earlier in the year. And, the last act of this judge was to, bond me, pretty much tell me I had to live like a fugitive. And she registered me as a danger to society in the statewide Ronco system. And I said, on what grounds? I have no criminal record. I've done nothing but open my mouth. And, you're going to register me, falsely register me, by the way, after I had evidentiary hearings and proved the fraud in the court. And instead of vacating it, you're going to extend it for 3 years maximum and register me as a danger to society. And I have to live looking over my shoulder where I go and live like a fugitive, because at any time your minions can falsely violate me. If you falsely filed me, then you can manufacture a false violation. If you have a false violation, you can falsely arrest me. If you falsely arrest me, then you're going to start putting felonies and everything else on my record. So I'm like, why would I subject myself to that? I do not consent. I don't agree. I'm not going to live like that. There are 49 other states in the United States for me to go live, and I don't need to live in your state under your registry, under your tyranny. I'm not going to do it. And so I left Kate, and she had the nerve. There was a review. She picked a review date, and I was supposed to be back in June. And I instead went on summer sabbatical, because for the last 3 years I've been working on my PhD in engineering. I'm a displaced veteran. I did, believe it or not, serve in uniform. I was a uniformed military officer at one time who believed I was defending the Constitution and serving as an agent of peace, but that was not really what it all turned out to be. So I've, shed those clothes, shed that uniform, and shed that thinking in pretty short order. And I actually resigned my commission a few years ago and got out, which was part of this, finding myself process and getting to where I am today on your radio show, talking about if I did it, you can do it too. So I've made a lot of very strong medicine choices, and if someone like me can do it, you listeners out there can do it too. It was a long path. This judge set a date. I was supposed to reappear in June for review, blah, 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 and I had filed a motion 30 days out to appear telephonically. I said, I'm going on sabbatical. It's May. I'm going away for the summer. I'm going on to summer sabbatical. I'm not working on my graduate studies. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to take summer work or do whatever, or hike or bike or go on retreat or, stare at the moon or do whatever I'm going to do for the summer. It's my prerogative. Well, don't you know that I attempted to call in from somewhere in Nebraska on my travels for the last 4 or 5 months. I've logged over 12,000 miles and been in probably 20 states. And I was there, and I had filed a motion to appear telephonically. I said, I'm on travel. I'm away for the summer. My stuff's in storage. I'm not,
Hey, Patrice.
Yes.
Patrice.
Yes.
I need you to breathe, hon. I need you to slow down. People are missing what you're
sorry.
saying.
Yeah.
I know. You know what? I can feel your.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I do it too. So I can feel your energy from here. We got 2 hours, hon. It's all yours.
Okay. I can slow down. That's good.
Slow it down, Officer Decommissioned.
Okay, slow down. I wish I'd been on fire for a while. I'm sorry, Kate.
I know. I wanted to let you go for a little bit so that you can get the energy out. But
plus I'm not accustomed to being on the radio like you are. So, like to a blind audience, it's kind of new to me. So I called in. She would not let me call in. I called in to find out what number I should be dialing so I could appear in court telephonically, from remotely, because it was not possible for me to be there in person. And she said I did not have permission to leave the state. And that unless I show up in person to argue my motion about not being able to appear in person for the hearing, she wasn't going to grant it, right? And I said, that's such a pollution of rationality, I can't even have this conversation.
I know, you get to that point where, okay, beyond the mere double talk that you're confusing yourself with, I'm going to go sit in the corner here until you can actually sort out some coherent thoughts that make sense, and then you might think about reappearing like a ghost,
Right. Exactly. So I'm like, okay, so the judge is taking the bench in 15 minutes. We're supposed to have the hearing, and I'm like, okay, I'll call back, And I said, and then I'm told, I said, well, look, I filed this motion per the judge's instructions, by the way, 30 days out, no timely objection by the other side or at all about me appearing telephonically. I said I was going away for the summer, and then the clerk tells me, well, we don't have a phone with a speaker on it, so you can't appear telephonically. I said, oh, okay. I said, this is an unreasonable request or something. Business people do it all the time. So so it was one of those pollutions of rationality. I said, you've had all month to buy one from Radio Shack or borrow one from one of the other courthouses that have more money than you do, that you can't buy a phone with a speaker on it, which I don't believe they weren't floating around. Somewhere in the halls of that courthouse was a phone with a speaker on it, right? So I was like, yeah, okay. So, they pretty much shut me out, denied me access, held the hearing without me, did a bunch of things, made a bunch of rulings on me without there, and said, it was a negative ruling, until I appear in that court in person, in body, which of course I do not consent, Kate. I'm never going to appear in her court again. So that, when I left, I had no intention of ever setting. Yeah, no, I had never had any intentions ever again setting foot in her court the day that she made that adverse, hideous, totally unlawful, abusive ruling on me, and registered me falsely in the state. I just am leaving me vulnerable to any cop who wanted to harass me in any coffee shop at any time to arrest me for no reason because I show up in their stupid computer. I was like, no, I'm not, I'm not going to be returning to your court. I'm not. I don't consent to that. So, I didn't appear. And I spent the entire summer driving around, being in this lost no man's land, and James talked about it on the recent recording, and he nailed exactly what I had been feeling, which is, when you leap from one, ledge over to another, there's this sort of period of suspended space that you're in when you're actually in the leap. You're not where you left, and you also haven't landed yet. And that's a very disorienting feeling. And I want to talk to the listeners about that feeling and about that process that I went through over the summer, because I knew I had made a leap by breaking from her, because I had been in that fear. This courts have traumatized me terribly. I suffered a lot of health and PTSD symptoms and a lot of things like that related to the legal abuse. And I'll spare the readers my details, but I've been in 3 or 4 different cases, family court, superior court, federal court. It's been a nightmare, as you all know, because anyone listening probably has had the experience. And the health problems, the mental duress, the financial problems, all of that comes rolling out. So I knew when I said no and finally refused to be her victim anymore, or to allow her to tyrannize me from her bench in ways that I wasn't fully comprehending, but I could feel at a visceral level were not right to who I am on the inside, that we're not in alignment with truth, we're not serving justice, and that there was something corrupt going on.
Yeah,
so even though
I was going to say, I just want to jump in there for a second, because and I understand the between. I'm still hanging out intermittently because I know I can to bring people that are on the plantation home to Divine Province, and those that still aren't quite there yet. Provide the tools to show them how to call their bluff, because it is only it's only a bluff.
But we can't. It's only a bluff. But part of it is you've got to. I was talking to a friend yesterday. I said, well, it's a very highly personal decision that you're talking about, Kate, because on the one hand, calling their bluff and going into their court and trying to do it is still, as James says, warring with them. We're warring with them, and you can't do it that way.
No, I totally get that. Patrice, I do want to make this point really, really clear. I'm going to balance this in the middle, because what JT is saying is absolutely correct. However, not everyone can think like a JT or me or whoever, yourself, and think that way. And what this is more designed to do is to empower people, and there are people listening right now that may not have all the savvy that they need, but they can get this, and they have a willingness to stand. And all the documents and everything you need, again, I'm trying to get everyone over to Divine Province as quickly as possible. In the meantime, what we can do are our hands out here that's still floating in space, and deliberately, so that we can still deal these blows into them, so that they know that the ruse is up, they know the bluff is called, that it's all about the money and the bonds, and this way you can walk in. And it's, you said it with regards to your the one judge that said that she was trained to deliberately do this. There are many, many more in the system that have no idea of what they're really doing. They've been indoctrinated more so than we have.
Yes, and that's correct. And I was that person, 6 months ago. Even it's 3 months ago. I was still on the plantation and thought, well, how do I go back in and get this done? And I was moving. I had leaped. And I was in the middle of the air. And thank God the seminar came up in September, because I had something to jump towards. Instead of being in that no man's land of, okay, I don't know how to get off the plantation, but I still need to stand up to this person. And there was that moment of truth where I finally said, I will not consent to have her tyrannize me anymore. And I did not have the savvy, and I'm still developing myself to be as strong or as unafraid as you and JP and everybody are. And it is a sort of leap of faith. Definitely, I want to tell the reasons that I'm not saying that I'm all courage and free of fear. I'm working on that. So if you feel fearful, or if you feel disoriented when you're leaping, that's normal. And I worked with some alternative health practitioners, and I had a wonderful alpha biologist who helped me through a lot of my court and legal abuse trauma, because I had a lot of health symptoms as a result of it, and I'm sure many other people do. You suffer when you're in the court system. You're suffering. Your body, your mind, your soul, everything is under a severe assault. And,
hey, I did 28 days solitary beside a guy that I spent, I think, about a week beside a guy that had just murdered a 12-year-old child. I know what that energy is about.
Right, exactly. So if you're unlawfully imprisoned, or if you're giving, there's a whole sets of things that can cause you to have mental duress, emotional, physical, and everything. And I had to work with this one guy, and he said, Patrice, every time you're feeling this nausea I would feel ill, or I would wake up with the night sweats. I would have all the symptoms a lot of people shared that they would have also. Night before court, you can't sleep. There's days leading up to it. All the freak out factor stuff that goes on. You're feeling paranoid. You're hypervigilant. Everything. What do I do? You can't eat. Bunch of symptoms. A lot of people have many of the same health symptoms. And what you have to do is also alter those and say, he said, well, every time you feel nauseated, he goes, our culture has trained us to believe that something's wrong if you feel in your central nervous system a nausea, like, oh, you're going to vomit, or this makes me feel ill, or you feel sick. He goes, those are actually good feelings. And I wanted to share that with your listeners because he said, every time you feel nauseated, it's the wisdom of your inner soul talking through your body to tell you that your body's processing, and it's not going to digest whatever it is, the cord, the fraud, the thing that's making you feel ill. You should look at that as a good sign because your body is, rejecting, saying, no, something's resolving. My body is going to reject that which poisons. And so it's not a sign of, oh, my God, something's wrong with me. I feel sick. I can't cope. It's more like, oh, I feel nauseated because I'm on the right path and my body says no to this. So I need to train my brain to say no to this. I need to stand tall like you encourage us to do, Kate, and not consent, refuse to consent. The jig is up. We're not going to go along with their fraud, their bluff, the thing. We're going to stand on ground with whatever we know, and we can always continue to learn more. Every time I've learned something new, I've added to that, and I felt stronger and more capable, more confident. Your confidence comes with more learning.
Okay,
and
I want to
jump longer.
Patrice, I want to jump in. You're making a lot of great points here, and something I will never do. I will never refuse consent. Listen to the words, and they use these to fine-tuning. Why would I want to rejoin consent with them? So when they say, when you refuse an attorney, they're actually saying you're joining them. So I'm just trying to point some listeners out here and help you're listening. Well, people should listen a lot closer and stop with what you think a word means and just really stop and digest everything you're saying. And another
That's
thing,
great, Kate. Thank you. That's the learning I'm talking about to your listeners. Every time you've said things like this with the words, I go and try very hard to reprogram my brain according to what you teach, James teach, what you guys are out there talking about. So I'll say it over and over again. I do not consent. I give no consent instead of refuse. So what you're saying is good. This is good. This is how we learn.
Well, it's a wake-up thing. Now, you talked about that leap of faith, and this is what I want to try to bring this home to everyone's listening now. You said, thank God that the seminar was there, when you made your leap. Actually, the seminar wasn't going to be there until you made your leap. All things for a reason here. So what I do stress to people is nothing is going to change until you make the choice. And you have to make a stand. If you cannot make that stand, the universe is going to say, okay. And if you make the jump, the universe is going to say, okay. And these are the choices, and you've hit so many beautiful points here. That's why I kind of want to stop you every so often to really drive those points home, because honestly, it's truly wonderful to listen to other people that are really just on fire, and wide awake. And again, in the nature of my being, I'm going to walk right down the middle of everything, and to try to bring balance into it. And that's why. You've made some beautiful, poignant comments. People, I want to get them to focus on. Nothing is going to change until you change your mind, until you make the choice. And this isn't about standing up in a belligerent way either. This is just about standing. I mean, I go right back to 2 years ago, last September past there, with the Judge Bows. I wasn't being a belligerent. I made my point very clear. I went in to clear up a mistake based on stuff they hadn't even given me. They tried to serve me 3 times and failed every time. I showed up out of courtesy to show them they've made a mistake. And that was just my test. And that's what people have to get to. This is game, and you got to stop taking it so seriously. that's designed to slow you down. It's designed to, and you talked about some of the symptoms and what have you, and it's designed to test you. And the universe will never give you anything that you cannot handle. And that is a fact. Because
right. So those economic setbacks and the physical health where you feel debilitated or depressed, are disabled from functioning at work, you can't concentrate, your home is falling apart, the court thing consumes your every waking moment, and all of that stuff. It's a quality of living that all of a sudden is gone from you, and it's a very personal decision. It's like you're saying, stand up, but really, it's really more take a hold of your life. Not only just take a stand, like you said, not in a belligerent way, but I was talking with a friend of mine the other day about this Somali refugee, and the woman, their tribes are war torn. They come in, they kill whole peoples. They're fighting all the time with guns and blood. At one point, the mother wakes up and says, "I don't want to live like this," and she escapes in the night with her 2 children, and literally runs for her freedom. She takes a stand in the middle of the night and decides my liberty, my children's liberty, our way of our ability to live and survive and thrive and be happy in peace, prosperity, and happiness depends on me leaving this. I can't stand here and fight. I'm not going to stay here to be killed. I'm going to finally just get up and go. And so it's this leap of faith. She leaves in the middle of the night. She has no ID. She crosses, an ocean. She lands in another country. She's a refugee. And in many ways, Kate, what I was feeling being in that suspended animation and not having landed is a sort of refugee status temporarily. When I went to the seminar and then we got our IDs and I discarded my state ID and put the Divine Providence IDs in my wallet and never looked back, I was a refugee. Because I know I was disoriented, even though I said, okay, I'm cementing myself to this process. I don't want to live in war and all the things that James talks about, that you talk about, and the others out there write about. Peter's been on the line; he's been great. The people at the seminar that I met, there's a like-mindedness that we don't want to live that way. The mother with the 2 children doesn't want to live that way. She doesn't want to wake up and find her children dead, or she doesn't want them to wake up and find her dead. It's a quality of life, and it's a very personal decision because some of the people didn't leave the village and stayed behind to fight. Some of them didn't, but some of them reclaimed their villages. Some of them leave. Some of them. So this step, Kate, is a very important one, and it's a highly personal one. And people can do it when they're ready, but they can also do other things to help them get ready. Pack a little bit here, do a little document here, listen to your show, get themselves at a place where, okay, I feel that I can do this. And that's where I had gotten to over the summer. So like you said, when the seminar came about, I was ready for it because I was right at the point of needing that. And I went, got the IDs, rented a truck, got a hotel room, I used my ID perfectly fine. I mean, people are afraid, like, well, what if the cop pulls you over? What if this or what if that? There's all this what if fear stuff. And I'm not saying that I didn't have little, crawling things in my head going, what if? And I said, I cemented myself to the process. And so I'm just,
I totally get it.
I'm like, I will do what James suggested. If I feel nervous or I do get approached for any reason, I'll invite them to call the number on the card. I was like, okay, call the number. I don't know what else to do, but that's what I would do. You start with something tangible and small that's achievable, and from there you gain confidence.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to need an ethereal or a spiritual perspective, because this is how I was thinking. I want to share this with you because you've actually lived it. You see, what happens is when people make the choice, when they finally make that decision, the ID that you're carrying now is that sense of freedom, okay, in a physical manifestation form. But what more importantly, it gives anyone that has that sudden, and you can call it a feeling of security or whatever, it's more the confirmation of you knew you were right. And what happens then is your entire energy shifts where you won't get talked to anyway. And this is exactly what I'm trying to get across. This is a higher game here. It's not physical, and I need people to get out of that. They need that's to get within, to get out of here.
Different vibration.
That's exactly right. I did not, right, I have not been, since I've been carrying, that's correct. And I did feel that shift. There was definitely a very visceral shift in my feeling of, oh, okay, I know who I am. And this is just to help someone else understand. If, in case they don't understand the words coming out of my mouth, I can show them an ID and they can dial a phone number. It was just kind of like, this isn't for me. The ID isn't for me. It's for them, so that I have a way of communicating. And I did not get bothered. I've not been bothered yet. And I also took James's advice. At the seminar, he encouraged us. He went through a lot of material in a short amount of time. And it can be overwhelming because if you're not, like anything else, like learning a new language or trying to master, more advanced math, your foundation, add, subtract, multiply, divide, but now I'm getting you to do the algebra. Okay, you mastered the algebra, now I'm trying to get you to do the calculus. And so with James, he had given us a lot of suggestions about how to go about and do our own work. He said, all of you out here are in different places and have different needs to run your daily life. These are tools. And he kept emphasizing these are tools. And I can't help myself. I'm an engineer. I've been in technical disciplines all my life, so the concept of tool was a very pragmatic one for me. I said, oh, okay, these are tools. So I started to put the tool set together. And what I did, before I even left the seminar, because I stayed through Sunday night and I didn't leave until Monday, that Sunday afternoon when a lot of people were packing up and leaving and this and that, I went down to the Office Max and made copies of it. I did exactly what he said. I made copies of all the court order, copies of my ID, copies of the Title 18, and made these little packets. And he said, you have to notice people. Put people on notice. Provide them notice of your status. Don't be afraid to say it. He goes, now that you've done it, keep carrying through. Live it every day. And I said, wow, okay, this is really the prescriptive guidance. And I said, wow, these, everything these guys have been in and how hard he's worked for decades, he and many others. I said, well, there's this old saying that they used to tell us is, in engineering, we study failure a lot. When you get an engineering degree, you study failure a lot. And I think most of this work has been taken to new heights, like Kate is saying, because of failure. We've learned what works and what doesn't. And so I have a deep appreciation for failure. And one of the mottos in engineering school is a smart person learns from their mistakes. And a truly wise person learns from the mistakes of others. And I said, wow, Kate and James and Peter and other people have made a lot of heavy-duty mistakes and spent a lot of time in jail. I don't want to go there, so let me pay attention, right? Let me be the wise person who's going to listen to the wisdom of their own, of what you guys have learned, because you're trying so hard to give it to us, and you get frustrated and we don't hear.
You got to breathe. You got to let me talk too, hon. Honestly, you're sailing past so many great points, and I, make a point and let, just kind of go for it. But I got to tell you something. Here's a very critical issue that you nailed again. That's why I'm jumping in, and I'll jump all over you to get these points out that you're bringing across. If you want true wisdom, someone comes to me. I can tell someone who is wise when they can say this to me: I did not know that. Thank you.
Right. Yes, thank you.
That's a sign of intelligence. People, and this is conditioning of system, and I've brought this up with pretty much everyone I've ever met in my life. And we all hear it. Pay attention to it. You will hear it. You'll say something, and someone will say, I know. And then I challenge them on it. Do you? Okay, well, tell me then. And that's the difference. But that's the way this society and the indoctrination that has been grained into people, into I call it a puppet status, or parrot status, where they're just parroting because it's the good thing to do. And I was guilty of it too. And these are things that people have to break free of. And another thing, when you talked about the woman with her family leaving in the middle of the night, North Americans need to pay attention here, because all you people out there that are walking around saying I'm in the freest place on the earth are deluded, because those that think that are the most trapped, because they don't actually think there's a snare going around their neck. So I need to point that out too. So if you want to be wise with me, my favorite thing is, I said it to you last night. I said, I did not know that. Thank you. Now I get to add that to my, as you know, you've heard me talk before, I go to look to be wrong. I study failure, as you did with engineering, and that's actually part of my background, architecture. So I grasp that, and it's about seeking. For me, I had to go out and prove things wrong. I had to prove things wrong in order to know that what I found was truth. Because if you try to prove something right, you're working with ego, and it's already tainted. So
right.
Anyway,
There's a richness in failure. Yeah, there's a richness in failure, Kate, that you're talking about, that we learn when buildings fall down or bridges fail or things fall apart, or we take them apart and they don't really work the way we anticipated they would. There's a richness in taking things apart and understanding the failure. There's such a learning in there, sometimes more than there is in success. Like you said, being right. Those are kinds of similar ways of saying the same thing. And so when James said, okay, notice people, when you go into your towns and cities and stuff like that, when you go home to your various locations, I've given you a template, go ahead and modify it and notify, the police in your town or the mayor or whoever, what your status is, who you are, you're here, you're an emissary of peace, you're not, some foreign or domestic terrorist or any of those things. And he goes, I gave you the template, just go ahead and use it. It's a tool. And I at first I didn't understand what he meant by doing that. Notice people. Why would I just randomly write to the police? I fear these people. Why would I write to the mayor? The police will knock on my door. Why are you writing to the mayor?
I go to the Vatican.
My mind went into a crazy place because I had always been into it. Like I'm like, well, okay,
I need to get this out because you hit the nail again in that, guys, I've done this for the last couple of years. I email direct to the Vatican, direct to Obama, direct to the White House, direct to Washington, D.C., direct to the City of London, the Attorney General of the City of London, who is the king of the corporate England.
Right.
Just know that. I emailed all the chiefs of police. You name it, I've emailed them. And they are on my ether list. I send out to the ether. So what James, and I'm going to reinforce this for anyone listening, what you've said is very critical. And what happens, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of times I was sitting sweating and, oh my God, and I take 10 or 15 minutes before I can hit that enter to, for send, right? And I'd look at it, and I'm looking at this list of Rothschilds, of you name it. And I've emailed, I remember the first ones that went out used to hit everybody, and then it wasn't long after that I started getting bounced emails because they don't want my email anymore. But it didn't.
Right, they would not be turned to. Right.
The more you do it, the easier it gets. That's why James has made that point, and it's a critical point because only when you wielding the power will you actually understand your own strength.
Exactly, and he did it. He was gentle about it because while you're doing this bold thing, you're on the radio, you're mailing everybody in the world, literally. He was trying to bring it back down to the local level and say, just notice the people in your own town. He was trying to make it very real, very practical, something low-hanging fruit that people could do that would give them that little inch of confidence. Oh, I mailed that and it worked. Okay, well, let me try the next one and that worked. Those sort of building blocks like you do in math or language or anything else when you're trying to acquire new skills. These are new skills, and they also make us feel uncomfortable. As adult learners, again, it comes back to what I was talking about with the health things or the feeling nauseated or feeling uncertain. That's all normal, and that's all okay to lick the stamp and mail it and feel, oh, my God, that moment of what if they come knock on my door? Well, you want them to. You're inviting them to. So on my tool, I put my number, and I said, I invite you to call me so I can come in and have a further discussion about this if this isn't clear to you or if you misunderstand why I'm sending this to you. So, none of them have called me. Nobody has bothered me or pulled me over. I had one police officer pull up in the parking lot to me, roll down his window, and told me, welcome to town. That was it. That was so far the only approach I got was from a local police officer. They had gotten my letter the day. He didn't say he got my letter, but I knew what it was about because the letter, they had gotten it earlier in the week. Right. So 2 days later, I get, I'm in a parking lot. He pulls up next to me with a big smile, and I said, and you are? And he says, I'm Officer Smith. I said, yeah, okay, Officer Smith. I was kind of laughing at him because normally I would have been extremely, before the seminar, I would have been extremely fearful for a cop to come anywhere near me. My heart would race if they even went on the crossroads. If I'm in the light and they went across the other direction and I saw a cop, I would be, having involuntary physical and mental symptoms over cops. But I did not have this because I had that shift that Kate talked about earlier, 3 weeks prior, having put the IDs in my pocket, the other one at the bottom of my backpack. I don't know where it is anymore. I can't even find it, and never looked back. And so one person had said, well, James, stood up at the seminar with the question and answer, periods that came on and off, and said, well, can't you just, since you're the Postmaster General, can't you mail out, why can't you guys just notice the whole country forest? Why don't you notice every sheriff in every county of the country? Some of us kind of laughed. I was one of them, and he laughed, and he said, I don't have time to do that, but you can do it at the local level. And he goes, if I can please get all of you to, there's 200 people here. He goes, let's just do quick math. If each of you were to send 10 notices, we can expand the notice to 2,000. He goes, if you were to send 20 notices each, that doubles again to 4,000. He goes, do you understand how this can ripple out? And we start to educate all across the country because you guys are all going to leave here and scatter around the country again. And he goes, and if you start putting those ripples in the ponds, we can make it grow more exponentially, more quickly, and more effectively than it just coming from some top-down central source of me. James was rightly so deflecting that. And since the seminar, I actually had in my head, he doesn't have time to do that, but I've had success sending out notices to 3 states and 25 people already. Maybe I'll do it. So I'm like, let's see, there's 50 states, 50 chiefs of state police, so that's 50. I can send out 50 notices. That would cover all 50 states. And then,
by the way, I have all the attorney generals for every state if you want all their email addresses.
Right, all the attorney generals, right? And then I was like, I can modify this tool to be, here's an example of, freeholders, divine province, what it is, who we are. In case any of the people in your towns or counties write to you, they'll send you an ID or a notice that looks like this. And, if they notice themselves to you, please, welcome them to your town. I was going to modify the tool that I had been using to notice status on myself personally and make it a little bit more general to share. Because I was thinking about that comment. I'm like, well, James doesn't have time to do that. But I'm like, it's something somebody like me can put some energy into doing at some level and do it. I'm like, okay, postage, whatever. I just have to come up with the funds to mail it out and stamp it out and everything like that. But I can chip away at that, 10 a week, whatever. So a couple of the people emailed me from the seminar, and, because we had exchanged names, and a bunch of people were networking, and people that sat at the same table, we would all, exchange contact information. And two people emailed me, and the one guy said, did you send any notices? And I'm like, yeah, I'm already all over that one. So he said, and I encouraged him. And I said, the other thing that James encouraged us to do is to make your seal, to make your stamp, go ahead and make your coat of arms, make your thing. The identification card is just that, it's the card. But your identity as a member of the divine province and your right to your divine identity is so important that the more time I spent creating that and thinking about that and having, all those little things that he suggested that we do, I'm not sure everybody caught, because he said them and he takes them for granted because his seal is already developed and Postmaster General already has a thing, and we have the flag, and we've got a lot of things that are symbolic and important. But until you start to use them, until you start to use them or have them, or you will own it, infuse yourself with that energy. If you create it, you have to create it.
It's yours.
You have to. It's yours. Create it and then use it. And I put the seal on all of my notices. I created a seal, and I print them. I put them on all my notices.
No,
I did. Everything he was saying to do, I just did. I'm like, okay, this is what he's saying to do.
Yeah, he's making a very, very important point to people. And your freedom isn't yours until you actually claim it, and it requires a bit of action. And when he had said about, why don't you send it all, when the guy said, or whoever said it to JT, send it out and stuff, and it says, well, that's not what freedom is. That's just more of the same slave think and slave mentality that everyone's been indoctrinated into, in that they need their hands held and they still have strings on their mittens. And it is about taking back your own personal divinity. This has got nothing to do with sovereignty or free man or any of that nonsense. This is your divine self. This is your creation. And when you start manifesting within your own changed reality, that's when the reality around you changes. And this game is in a whole different level of play right now. I did have a couple of questions here I wanted to go over. That's why I need to jump into it, because I have people in the chat room asking and stuff. So here we go. This one's from Deatra herself. She just wanted to know if the ID that you've mentioned, have you used them in any function, like as a passport or as an actual ID at a bank or something of that nature? And we do have reports of that, and there's no problem. People getting literally ushered through very quickly at airports because they're carrying diplomatic.
Yes, and I'll tell you what motivated me to send the notices. It was Albert's testimonial at the seminar about using his ID. Flying, because he was a part of a group that already had the IDs, and a bunch of us were in receipt of our IDs at the seminar, and he talked about having noticed Canada, that he went to the embassy, said, I'm going to be flying or traveling in this such and such a day, and they said, oh really? And he goes, I really don't want any problems, and he gave them advance notice who he was, and this is what my ID is, and this is what it looks like. So even when I heard that, and then I heard JT's instructions to notice and to include copies of the court order, copies of your ID, and copies of the Title 18, I said, aha, that enables them to see it, become familiar with it, and when they go, oh, I've seen this before, and you educate them not to jump to the conclusion that there's something fraudulent about it. Now, when I left the seminar, I was in a rental car. Dropped that rental car off. I had some business to do on the East Coast. I traveled all the way back to the mountains, 2,000 miles. I rented a small truck because I had some things that I wanted to pick up and take with me. And I rented it with the international driver's permit. I gave it to the rental company. It was budget truck. I gave it to him. He took it. He didn't even blink. No problem. I went to a hotel, and they said, we need ID. I got a room, gave him the ID, didn't blink. I went, I had to alter my phone service because the phone that I had wasn't working in the mountains or whatever, and I needed to get a new phone. It turns out there's only one carrier that really works well here, so I had to change carriers. And I canceled one contract and opened a new one with this ID. And she said, I need to see ID, but I gave the ID. Not a blink. Not a blink. I have shown this ID so far in 7 states, in 3 or 4 different, activities. They don't even blink. So if I can do it, people, if you're listening, and I was a fearful rabbit. I'm telling you, what you're hearing on the radio now is a confidence born of going through the fire, landing on my feet, dusting off, and going, oh, I'm on a different ledge now. And, do I feel a little unsure-footed? Yes, but I'm definitely walking forward, and I'm not where I was, okay? So that, I would have been hesitant too in times past, so it's not like I don't understand that ill feeling, or that, oh, what if they reject it, or what if they say this is invalid, or you're handing me something fraudulent, or something like that. No, you can invite them to call the number on the card, and you invite them to call the number. I mean, if somebody really, I haven't had that challenge yet personally, but that's my strategy in case I do get challenged. That would be my first line of strategy, to have them call the number.
You won't get challenged on it. And I just want to bring up a couple of things. This is from Jacob, and I got to tell people there are no such thing. Well, there is such a thing as a dumb question, and it's the one you don't ask. That's the only time I ever call something a dumb question. And there was a comment here with regards to, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer it. I've got my own ideas about the District of Tens and the meaning of the words as far as what they are. The District of Tens, to me, that's where you're dealing with divinity. 10 is the one and the nothing, all right, which is the on-off, like the I-O, right? what we're dealing with here, when you're outside of the district of tens, which is Washington, D.C., which is 10 square miles, what you've actually done is Divine Providence is elevated above the Universal Postal Union. It flies above that. The Universal Postal Union is the most powerful court in the world. It's headed by the Pope. So when you're above that, it's a different game. And it also asked about how Canada fits in with the District of Columbia. Well, the Corporation of Canada is registered with the District of in the District of Columbia, or DC, direct current as I call it, because that's what it is. That's where all the power goes. That's why anyone who wants to get involved with unnations, well, I think you guys call it UN or United Nations, the unnations, if you want to be a fool and play into their hands, and there's a bit of a trap going around right now that I do need to get out with people. Honestly, I'm going to do another show on that. I don't even want to talk about it right now because I have noticed so much written garbage in all my life. You use the word person on a document and you're dealing with government agents, because your group is the only one, the Canadian government wants to meet with. That's a dragnet of dragnets. But anyway, I just want to get back to Canada here.
Yeah, the Canada thing, people get confused. People say, what has Canada got to do anything? Patricia, and I'm like, well,
Part of the divine. Yeah, and that's the thing, too. In the United Nations, all the countries that are there are registered, crown-owned, which means Triple Crown, Rome, London, D.C. And people still, I've talked about this for years, and people still don't get it. Now, that's why whenever I came across Peter, Rory introduced me to the sui juris.me, and that's where I got to meet Peter. There was a bit of a gap between us hooking up, but neither of us were really fully ready for each other at this point. And as soon as I came to the knowledge that they had literally got the keys of Peter, I look at that from a very ethereal aspect. I know what they are. Excuse me, and it goes far beyond physical, because this game is not a physical game here. That's the illusion. And once you can find yourself, and you're on a roll, kiddo.
I love her, man.
When you can find yourself the same way that Patrice has everyone that's listening, you'll start to understand the shit that I'm talking about. And you can't do it sitting back being theoretical. You got to get up off your duff and go out and do something. You got to make the move, make the choice, because if you're not, then you're still slave speak. And I can't. People like Patrice, myself, JT, I don't care who out there that knows what we know, we can't do shit with you because you're asleep and you're not willing to wake up. So great, I love you. Stay asleep. Fair?
Right. There was a gentleman at the seminar who he came unprepared. He traveled quite a distance. I don't want to give his name or anything like that, but he traveled quite a distance, wanted to do it, was going to, but he hadn't completed the paperwork. And one of the prerequisites for the seminar was you had to have mailed off and done all of the steps. And you had to, if you wanted ID, you had to have, you had to have your silver, you had to have things. There was A, B, and C. It was pretty clear what needed to be done in order for you to leave in the state that I left in, which was fully prepared to assume my new identity and go forth and, be free. Whatever that means. It's uncomfortable. I feel ill. I don't know where I am. I'm disoriented, but I'm going to do it. Okay, so he came to me, at one point. He was like, oh, you seem to be all organized and everything. I'm like, I'm not organized. I'm just committed. Because I don't really fully know all the stuff, but I'm trusting these guys. I'm listening for the learning. I'm here to learn. I want to glean whatever wisdom he gives, and whatever small things pertain to me, I will put them on my list as action items, and I will do them. So when he talked about mortgage or foreclosures or what to do with property and things like that didn't really pertain to me because I don't have property. I tuned it out and focused on the things that pertained. Because he had a very wide, diverse audience at very different levels with all competing needs, a lot of different diverse needs. And this gentleman said, well, okay, Patrice, here, let's meet for dinner, and you can help me do my paperwork. And I said, no, I'm not going to help you do your paperwork. You should have done it before coming here. I don't understand why you didn't do it. I'm like, okay, so the next morning, James is there, and we're starting up again. It's coffee. Everybody's coffeeed up. And, the question and answer is this, that, and the other thing. I gave you tools. There's a tip going around. There's documents. There's templates for you guys to use. There's a copy of the flag, a JPEG of the flag if you want to use it, blah, blah. We were talking about a lot of different things. He was covering a lot in a short amount of time. And so you really had to pay attention. And one of the things that James says the next morning is, do your own work. And I was almost looking for this guy in the audience, like, did you hear that? Are you paying attention? Do your own work. It's not that we can't help one another. We can all go on a hike together and bird watch, and I can point over there and say, gee, did you see the cardinal? The red one in the tree. He's big and beautiful. I can point you to the treasures, the beauty, and say, look, this is what I did. I made this notice. So when a couple of other people wrote to me and they said, did you notice? And I said, yes, this is what I did. And here's a copy of my seal. James had said, remember, he said, make a seal. And I said, this is what I made. What do you think? Get feedback. And then, so now I've been in this thing of noticing, mayors and chiefs of police and the county sheriff and being like really successful with that. Nobody bothers me except, one little welcome to our town thing. And now I'm like, okay, the other piece, which was a little more difficult, that James said, well, if you have ongoing litigation or other loose ends in their court of fiction, he goes, there are ways to deal with that. And he was always kind of vague at the seminar that we were covering a lot of things, and he would brush over that. But he said one of the things you need to do is you can't communicate with their fiction. You need to communicate with their person. Person to person is how you're going to cure a few of these things. And I was like, wow, what's he talking about? And I'm sure a lot of you listeners, when you listen to Kate speak, or you listen on these radio shows, or you watch video, or you read stuff, you're like, what are they talking about? And you get that sort of I'm lost feeling. And I'm like, well, what does he mean, talk to the person? Again, my head went in a crazy place. I write to the judge, they're going to come get me. I had all these fears wash over. And when he spelled it out, how to do that, the how-to, the know-how, all that fear went away. So I didn't do it right away. Now that I've had experience with the notices, I've decided to tweak the tool. So I fell back again. He said, these are tools. You can adapt them, play with them, figure out what works for you. Try them. He goes, this is unknown territory, but you mustn't be afraid. Be willing to work with the tool or adapt the tool to meet your needs. Do your own work because it's your daily life. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to write to a couple of officials, living person to living person, the way that James said, and that felt really uncomfortable to me. I was a lot of apprehension, a lot of the physical nausea. I said, okay, this is nausea, so this is a good sign. I can do this, and I've taken it to the next level a little bit. I had success with the notices, had success with the IVs. I've been doing this, and I sent some strong notice, correspondence, person to person, because you write, and he showed us how to address it to the person, and that was important. He goes, you have to address, he goes, they will know that you're addressing them if you write it this way. And so because he was so clear, and he gave us templates to use, that gave me just enough confidence to try it. I'm like, well, what are they going to do to me? It's a piece of paper. If they don't want to read it, they'll throw it away. You know what I mean? Like the review with the emails, they're just going to bounce. If they don't like your email, they're going to take you. They're going to block you, right?
I think there is one particular judge that needs to get an email from you that maybe California. Just thinking, And again, this is about educating them. This is not about vengeance or getting even. This is where
exactly.
It starts to get fun, doesn't it?
Yes, and James said these are tools. They're not. It's not something for you to take a hammer and go get revenge on somebody or to get punishment. That's not what this is, and that's not how I've been using it. I paid very careful attention to the intent behind the use of the tool. I have a friend who's a culinary artist, and she uses knives all the time. Okay, in another setting, a knife is not really a culinary tool. It's a weapon, and you can kill people with it. It's a matter of how it's used. Okay, so knives are useful tools for many applications. And I think what James was trying to say with his tools and the documents and he said there's a lot of things. He goes that it's hard for me to explain to you guys, but that you shouldn't alter. like it being on the right-hand side and at the top, and this is centered and that's, he goes, because it hits their nerves. He goes, there's a lot of symbology and a lot of words and a lot of things that I use in these documents. He goes, that I know hit their nerves. And he goes, I'm speaking to them a lot of the time through certain words and through certain symbology and through certain placement of certain things on the paper.
Oh, again.
Excuse me, Patrice.
Right.
I have to cut in a moment. It's Katie here. My voice has changed a bit. How do I sound now?
No.
I'm sorry. Another soul here. And I have to say that what I've heard tonight is definitely, I thought my soul was lifted, but you pushed it up another notch. And coming from an experienced soul here, you're doing the correct thing. Okay? Carry on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You know what? Validation is one of the most powerful tools.
Well,
and I think what the courts do to us, they invalidate us. When they keep us in suppressed and fraudulent stuff. Invalidation is a very violent thing.
Patrice, without getting into any detail as to who just validated you, the level of validation you just got is one you cannot even imagine at this point. Let's just say we have a very, very core group of beings that are have been walking at the forefront of this for a while, and none more so than the gentleman you were just talking with. So, and something else too, and you brought up, I got to hand the U.S. military some credit here. Boy, they got their officers with their heads on, and it's no wonder that you were an officer, because you're used to thinking on your feet, and this is the difference of thinking. You're used to thinking on your feet. You're used to making snap decisions because other people's lives may depend on it. And when you get into that sense of others, and that's what an officer is, they have to be concerned with their own men and women around them more so than themselves, because they know that when they make a decision, if it's not the right one, it can cost lives. And this is the difference of standing versus waiting for someone to push you up in a buggy in front of the all-you-can-eat buffet. Okay. So that's the difference, and I'm so glad you emailed me to get on here. And I'm just going to let you go on here. So I just wanted to.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me and taking me up on my little sort of like out of the blue email, like I got to come on your show and talk. And thank you for inviting me. I feel honored to be allowed to share my experiences, courage, fears, apprehensions, and stepping forward and all. In running, and I took off. I'm running hard. On the military side of it, the military core values of the Air Force are integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all that we do. And those core values aren't exclusive to the Air Force. You can own those. They're up for anybody to have. And my heart really goes out to anybody, any man or woman in uniform right now, and their families, over the way that the military, the United States military, is being abused. We were originally, back in the spirit of defense, were considered like a guardian class. There's a very distinct doctrinal change in the military over the last 100 years from when, at least in my history and reading, as a guardian class and defenders of the Constitution. And I'll never forget being hammered by a senior officer one time that you defend the Constitution, not any one leader, not the people, not this land, the Constitution, because the Constitution is what constitutes the glue between the people, our creed, our way of life, and our divine very being. I didn't have a clue what he was talking about, but I felt shaken to my core. And he said, you must, he was addressing a lot of us, and he said, you must always defend the Constitution, the values that underlie living and dying, who you are as a living being and what your responsibility is as an officer. And I was like, wow, okay, he's saying something heavy. And it took me a long time for that to marinate deep inside of me and what he meant by that. And it actually led to my resigning my commission because some years later, in the face of current events and the ways in which the honorable men and women who are also being abused are being led to slaughter in the name of something evil. And my heart goes out to anyone serving in a uniform who believes that they're doing the right thing and on some level know they're being led to doing the wrong thing. It's such a crisis of conscience. It's such a crisis of conscience. And when your pay or your family or your dependents need your salary in order to live, you are placed in a very difficult position to live or die for them, for your country, for yourself, and you come back lost. We have so many lost military and service members who thought they were serving one thing and find out they're serving something else. It's a very heavy, heart-rending place to be in, because I know I went through it and left. But we have many of our service members killing themselves because they cannot find their life.
Yeah, and another reason why I'm so elated for showing up, and I just want people that are out there listening right now, Patrice, you emailed me, and I thought, hey, that's all I ever ask is for people to contact me, and if you want to get on, let's get it on, get on the air, and all things for a reason. That's why I live in the now moment, and the things that you've brought up with regards, and this applies to any military, because we're listened to around the world. I'm originally from the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. I'm from Ireland originally, and this goes out to the British military, to any of the American and Canadian military and Australian, everybody. They are all in a very awkward position where they're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, and that is a war of conscience that many people will wage, and because of situation will lose, and they will take their own lives. And that's why you're seeing the rise in the suicides, because people are at war with themselves, not knowing which way to turn, and it's a very destructive force within. So I'm so glad you brought that up, kiddo. I can't begin to say thank you enough.
Oh, well, thank you. My heart just goes out to them, because it's just so tragic. It's just so tragic, especially for so many of the young ones who believe or want to be a part of something larger than themselves, and they want to serve that ideal of being crisp and at the ready, and to serve, and they don't really know what they're serving, and they get sent to slaughter, and it's just so tragic to me.
And it's a mixed master sort of thing. They're told that they're doing this for this reason, and we all know what it is. It is the oil cartel, banking magnates.
It's fraudulent. Yes, it's fraudulent. They're fraudulent missions. The missions are fraudulent, and they're sacrificing themselves. They don't realize, right?
They don't realize it, and here's
but they can't get out either. They're trapped. They're very trapped. They're going to be punished. Either way.
I was going to say, and when they do get out, and then when they do finally realize that what they have been involved in is a criminal act of unknown proportions in terms of maiming and murdering and killing and causing people to lose their lives and homes and their entire identity, that's a heavy burden for a young soul to bear. And I can't imagine. I'm actually surprised that the suicide rates are at least 5 or 6 times what they are, because this world is awakening. You're a great indicator of it, as so many people I come into contact with around the world. I talk to people around the world, and this world is changing, and it's getting beautiful. This is what's happening.
Right. Well, we have suicide, we have substance abuse, we have broken families, broken hearts, maimed bodies, totally, terribly psychic injuries in the mind. We have really damaged the minds of many of our service members. A troubled mind, just like a troubled muscle, a pulled muscle, hurts. It's injured. Psychic injury is very real. A moral injury is very real. And those are painful, invisible disabilities that are plaguing and debilitating our people and the families and the people who love them, who try to understand, who try to put them back together when they come home broken. It's a very challenging situation. And I forgot what I was going to say. Something James had said at the seminar. Well, he's always talking about we don't want wars in our name anymore. I mean, that's part of the Divine Providence Creed. Is we're not going to consent to wars in our name on the good faith and credit of the people anymore. We don't want that. So, he also said you can't there were many people that came over and asked questions at the seminar about, well, I have, what do I do with my license when I'm a truck driver and I need have to carry this permit? Or one doctor got up and said, well, I still need professional and I'm taking health insurance and it doesn't feel right and I feel tied to this fictional government and I don't want to be a part of that as a professional. And James was trying to address, there were so many good questions and so many, the diversity of people there was so wonderful and the energy was so high. He did his best to try to address those things, and he said, that's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and it must have been frustrating for him, to keep saying it's coming, these things will iron out. But he also iterated, you can't have one foot in the system and collect food stamps or unemployment or take a, government.
You cannot have your cake and eat it too. And I just want to jump in here for a second.
Right.
We may have a special guest showing up, so just hang tight. And if they do call in, I'll tell you who it is when they call in.
Okay, sounds great. So he was saying that, and I was like, wow, I'd already done that because 2 years ago I resigned my commission, and I forfeited all pay and benefits, any opportunities for retirement and everything. I collect nothing from the United States military. For all my years of service, I collect nothing. I resigned my commission. I did what I did. I broke free of it, and, it's a thing, that I had to get personal closure on, but I don't collect any benefits. People are like, oh, you got veterans benefits. I get nothing. I forfeited all pay and benefits. I receive nothing. Okay, so I'm in the DP. Okay, I left. I went in the DP. I've done a lot of this work, and like Kate said earlier in the show, the seminar was ready for me because I was ready for it. I'd already been doing this work many years leading up to this. I didn't know. I wasn't fully conscious of what I was doing at the time that I was doing that it was going to lead to this. I just would make the decision, like the woman, the refugee who left in the night with her 2 children, to say, I don't want to live this way anymore. I want to live. I don't want to be slaughtered in the middle of the night. It was her crisis of conscience that said, I've got to get my children out of here and hope for a better life, myself, my heirs, whatever's going to happen, any grandchildren that I might hope to have. So she leaves, and it was kind of like that for me. I left the military. Now I've left the United States and joined the DP. I've left, so many things. I've suffered a lot of ambiguous losses. I've gone through the fire. I've had to find my courage. I've tried to use these tools. Every time I use one of the little things that James says do, make your seal or send this letter or try this thing, you do it. You gain a little confidence. You get positive feedback. You get validation. Someone says, welcome to our town. And you're like, wow, that works. That's cool. And you can start to shift. For me, your listeners are hearing Kate and others say that I'm in the high-speed lane and that I'm really on fire and I've been running hard and running fast, which is true. But like any good, say, theater show or dance, you see the 2-hour show and you're like, wow, these people are fit, they're trained, they're ready to go, they're flying through the air on flying trapezes. But what you don't see was all the hours of training, preparation, rehearsals that they did that led up to that beautiful 2-hour show. So I'm talking to Kate, and it sounds like she and I knew each other all this time, and we're having this show, but there's nothing rehearsed here other than the work that Kate has done in her own life all these years and the work that she's done with the others that have been leading the way to shine the light. I mean, James always talks about the torch. I can hold the torch to the cavern and say, look, if you go this way, we're going to get to the light at the other end of this dark cavern. I know it's dark, but I've got this light. Can you at least follow the light? But you got to do your own walking. You got to walk with your own 2 feet. You got to watch for that boulder over there. And here's a bit of water dripping, and but it's going to be wet, but we'll get through it. And the light is there. We just keep going. Just keep going. Have faith. Keep trusting. And James says this, but it's very hard when you're living out of your car, or your house is being foreclosed on, or your children have been taken from you, or you don't have a job, and there's no money coming in, and there's wars all over the world, and he's saying, oh, it's coming, just, have faith. And you're like, oh, my God. It's very unnerving. If there's any listener out there that feels totally unnerved, that's okay, because I feel unnerved, too, even though I'm on the show, and I sound really confident, and I've been running in the high-speed lane. Yes, I've done a lot of the work. Be sure of yourself. Be sure of yourself.
And here's the thing else, too, and it goes right back to many of us we've given our all. I mean, literally, figuratively, spiritually, everything to get into this to the point where here I am was living in a tent for 2 months, which I take as the blessing. I wasn't that mother running with her children in fear of my life, so I don't bitch that much. But it wasn't fun in comparison to what I'd been used to and what I'd worked so hard to have stolen from me. But at least now I had to get there so that people knew my true intent. Get it? So my true intent is I'll go to the mat for anybody, and I have to tell you, my torch almost hit the ground a few times, but it never did. I never let that torch hit the floor, and that's basically the stand that people have to make. And I'm waiting for our surprise caller as soon as they can dial the number I gave them, and we'll bring them in, and you're in for a bit of a treat.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm happy to take questions. I mean, if people have questions for me, like how did I overcome it, or what did I do, or, you know, when you're laying at night watching the ceiling fan go around, and you're like, oh my God, I can't, you know. There are ways to tap in and to remind yourself. There are so many people out here validating what you're doing, that you're listening to this call, that you're trying to wake, that you're willing to run the path. Okay, that you're putting on the sneakers and you're like, okay, which way is the marathon? Like, you don't even know what road you're, you know, like James, when I was ready to go to the seminar, I signed up, I did my PayPal thing, I'm ready to go, blah, blah. And then I finally realized, you know, it was like 4 days out and I was facing a 4-day drive, you know, all the way from the mountain time zone to get to Virginia. I was going to be on the road 3 or 4 days to get there, right? So, and I realized, oh, I'm leaving in the morning. I don't know when. I don't know where I'm going. I said, but, you know, I'm like, it's in Virginia somewhere. So I finally write to the thing, you know, I don't know who's there, you know, info at whatever, who I'm writing to. I'm like, it would be really helpful if you told me which hotel or what town the seminar is in, because I have no clue where I'm going. I'm registered, I paid, I'm on the road, but sometime in the next 72 hours, I need a final destination. Right? So James writes back to me. He sends me an email. And he says, "Oh, hi, Patrice." Right? He goes, "Flying by the seat of our pants, are we?" And I go, something like that. And he goes, "Well, you know, the seminar is being held at such a hotel in such a town." He goes, "Is that good enough?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can find it." You know, I'm like, I don't even know where I was going, but I was so determined to get there that I was like, oh, well, I guess, you know, eventually the address will, you know, I'll ask for it, or I'll remember, or I'll get to a Wi-Fi at a rest stop, because rest stops have Wi-Fi now. And I also learned that all the McDonald's have rest stops now. I'm not a McDonald's eater. It's unhealthy in the whole 9 yards, but I've come to like them because I know they always have free Wi-Fi. So
at least we're good for something. But I got to tell everyone listening out there right now, if this is not a point of inspiration for flying by the seat of your pants, and I do fly, by the way, just to let you know, I'm a driver and a pilot. So as above, so below figure. Why did I do that? Anyway, if people need any form of inspiration, all they got to do is download this show, and you can get it on freedomreigns.us. Just go to our archives, and if you have those down moments where you think you can't do it, well, you just got to play maybe 15-20 minutes of this one. Patrice should set people straight. But here's someone that hasn't got their final destination, and that's not very good for an Air Force being, okay? Because it's a little hard to refuel in the air, so you need to know where your next landing strip is. So
right.
Right,
coming from someone who was trained to mission plan down to the minute. Okay, you're talking to someone who abandoned all of my training completely. It was totally out of character for me to get in my car and start driving east and not even know where I was going. Okay, like that's how far apart my training and what I was doing was. Okay, because I was going by spirit. I wasn't going on mission planning. There was none. Okay.
And you made it. Look, you made it.
And I made it. I was psyched. I made it. Yeah, I made it. I was there. I figured it out. Yeah, exactly. So the takeaway, Kate, right, of today is if I can do it, so can you. For any women out there listening, I also noticed, it was something I noticed, that there were far more many men at the seminar than women. So I don't understand the gender equality thing there going on, why women are less coming forward. And I know some guys were talking about, can I get my wife, my kids, you know, there's that sort of, I did it, but now I want to bring my people with me. And James always talks about, well, no, they need to do it themselves. You know, they have their own identity. And
well, that's
that's
it.
interesting.
It's the individual spirit. Yeah, it's the individual spirit, and I love the fact that that is what is being pushed. And what we have to do is break this paradigm of the wife being subservient to the husband. I've done the shows on it, guys. It means the emotions must be subservient to the mind. So what we need to do is break that paradigm of that apparent gender inequality, and that somehow women are less capable than men to do this. So for crying out loud, my favorite saying is anytime I come up talking to a guy or whatever about how tough things are, and I says, what are you talking about? I can do it, and I'm half the man you are. You know, so it's like, lose this whole notion of gender or whatever. Get out of that paradigm of religio cosus. That's what Rome taught. That's what religions teach. This is about a team of duality. A husband and wife are one, and both are equal parts. Like the heads and tails of a quarter. You flip it any way it turns over, it's still a quarter.
Right. Right. I mean, like, you know, my friends, they've been worried for me. They're like, oh, but geez, you're a chick, you're out there on the road. They got all these fears and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I never felt more safe or more at peace sleeping in a truck stop surrounded by all these rigs and all these guys, salt of the earth, transporting things. You know, some of the most really present individuals are the ones who are always moving. I didn't feel unsafe or unguided, or I just felt a hedge of protection around me at all times, and I believed in that, and I trusted in that, and I had no problems, and I was totally just driving east and did it. And if I can do it, you guys can do it. Okay, you can do it. And and let me add one more little thing. If it's not motivation enough already for what I've done, you know, I'll confess. I'll give you this little testimonial about myself and how far I've come. You know, I actually suffer another disorder that's an invisible problem. I'm an autistic adult. I'm a high functioning autistic adult. I have gifts and talents, which is why I got into the Air Force, because I blew away the tests. But I was a kid who didn't speak really until I was like 8 or 9 years old. I suffer deception and being deceived and picked on a lot. Okay, so I could be easily led astray, or have my trust and my vulnerability and my belief in things and what's divine and what's beautiful abused. And I've been abused many times in my life for trusting the wrong people. Okay, so for those of you out there who feel fooled or deceived or trusted or manipulated or exploited, yes, you have been. And tomorrow's another day. So you can wake up in the morning and choose to trust again. And what you vest your trust in is your divine spirit, the wisdom of those who've led you, the understanding that you can do it, and someone's always got something more that they can teach you. Someone up chain always knows more than you do, has more situational awareness than you do, and it's worth sometimes trusting. By the same token, you always have something to share with someone else. And when you start to realize that, hey, you know what, I can help you with that, or I did this and it worked, or I came on the radio show and shared with you guys, you know, my vulnerabilities, my fears, my apprehensions, and I leaped anyway. And I'm saying that because if I can do it, you can too. And I think that's a worthwhile message. And what drove me to do it was listening to Kate and Peter last week, so frustrated at having put the documents up, made the steps 1 through 8. Here are the and I get confused with the documents too. So even though they made the 1 through 8, or the steps on this tab are all the forms you need, download this, mail this off, it's confusing. I grant you that. And just work with it. Like algebra was confusing, or driving a stick shift was confusing when you first did it, right? When you first drove a stick shift, you had to pay attention to all the stuff, the clutch, the gears, the thing that's going on. Oh my God, you're going to run a stop sign, you know. And then eventually, driving becomes a little smoother, and you're not paying attention to those overwhelmed things. You kind of grasp it, right, Kate? So over time, the documents, the material becomes familiar, and you can drive that car. You can do it. You can drive this process called take liberty for yourself and be free, and, you know, take charge of your own life. Believe in yourself. Do it. You can do it. You can drive your life.
Everybody, and I love the enthusiasm. And again, you know, there's so many people out there with training wheels on their bike that for some reason feel obligated to pop wheelies and stuff. No, that's not what it's about. It's about taking baby steps. It's about taking that tiny little hurdle that you know it might take a bit to get over it, but you know you can get over it. And when you get over that, you pick the next biggest one, because what you're doing is you're step-by-step building spirit. That's what we're here to do. We're not here to do anything material. Is about the divine essence of building yourself. This is kindergarten for angels. This is where we all learn to be the divine aspect of God as God, because a lot of great teachers told us, and try to pay attention, that ye are gods. And that's what we're here to train about, and that's what we're here to do. And the fact when you said about taking all your military training and you threw it to the wind, that's perfect, because that shows in absolute clarity that even the strongest of the programs that are out there, the military have the strongest, can be broken. And look what comes out of it. Patrice, this flower. Then here you are.
For those of you who are afraid of heights, in the military, they train you. They put you in a lot of fear situations on purpose, and they train you, and they make you do things that are, challenging always your edge, or putting you to your limit, what you can take, right? They overwhelm you, stress you, fatigue you. They put you in mental confusion. They do a lot of things to you, right? So I remember one time, it was the heights thing, climbing or whatever we were doing, and, one person said, whatever you do, don't look down. If you're going up, the higher you go, the more you need to keep looking up. The higher you go, keep looking up. And I was like, oh, okay. And I made the mistake once that we were climbing something, and I was up, and I looked down. And I went, oh, I'll never make that mistake again, because I didn't understand what he meant until I did it.
And then it's, I guess it's too late.
Yeah, right. I'm surprised I didn't vomit on everyone below me. When you're climbing heights, sometimes when you're climbing and you feel you haven't made progress, just keep looking up until you get there. And guess what? You'll get there. You'll get there. You will get to the view or a landing that enables you to pause and see how far you've come and regain your confidence and your strength and take a rest. But when you're actually climbing and doing, just keep going. Keep looking up. Keep looking up. Just keep looking up.
Yeah, so many people get caught in the valleys, and what do you call that? I think our guest doesn't realize that my show is over at 9. I've only got half an hour left, so if you're going to call in, you need to call in between now and 9.
30 more minutes or something.
Yeah, he just caught what I've been trying to say, so I've been waiting and waiting. We got like a half an hour left, so I want this individual on the air with you, because I know it's just going to be this beautiful explosion of love energy. So, So go ahead, mystery guest. Call in, and I'll hook you up, and then everyone can try to guess who it is by their voice.
Mystery guest. Okay.
Yeah, we're having another mystery guest. No, I sent word out to everyone that you were on tonight, so you're not the mystery, Patrice. I made sure.
Okay, I don't want to be a mystery. I'm kind of like a quirky, character, and I wanted to relieve your frustration. You and Peter were so frustrated. I'm like, okay, they're not getting, they're so far ahead of me. It's like the guy who told me don't look down, right? He'd done it so many times. He said don't look down. It was obvious to him. Like, you guys say so many things that are obvious, and because I'm still sort of, out of the gates, as it were, and I haven't laughed around too many times, it's not obvious to me. I'm still living it. I'm still feeling every shift and every gear and the clutch and what's going on with the car, and every noise, unnerves me in the car. I'm not just humming along with the radio on. I'm unnerved because I'm learning how to drive the stick shift, right, or fly. You fly, right? So, flying is another thing. There's a lot to pay attention to. Flying. And so, right? Or when you first did the radio or the boards or anything new, right? So it's the newness. You're trying to learn it. And you guys say stuff that you don't realize is, what's the word? Overwhelming to us, okay, or confusing to us. And it's not that we feel we're asking a dumb question. It's that you guys say it with such confidence and such
it's only because we... it's just...
1 + 1 is 2. There you people see that 1 + 1 is 2, and we're like, huh? Okay.
Yeah. And just to let you know, our other party is here, but I just wanted to say this. one of the things people ask me, how did you get here? And I said, well, I got where I am in my own knowledge now by being wrong way more times than you. So,
yes, the richness in failure, right? The learning through failure, absolutely.
Well, let's say hello to our mystery guest.
Okay, hi. Who's there? Knock, knock. Who's there?
Me. I am me. Me is here.
There we go.
Okay.
But if you want a name, I really, but most people call me Peter.
Okay. Hi, Peter.
The infamous Peter. All right. So anyway, you've been listening for a while here, Peter. So I'm just going to let you two guys. I'll give you the 3-minute warning before the show is over. But I'm going to let you guys go and do your thing. So carry on.
Okay, I'm going to ask Peter if he knows who I am. If he was at the seminar, would he be able to identify me?
Were you at the seminar?
I was, and I know you were too, and I want to know if you can identify me.
I want to know if you can identify me.
Oh, okay, I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint about me. Do you recall people buzzing, talking, and nobody, James is trying to get the session going after a break? And there was this chick up front that whistled. There was a chick up front that whistled like nobody's business. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. I must have been in a coma.
Oh, you must have been in a coma because everybody knows who the whistler is. Peter, you weren't there. You weren't there. You stepped out.
You must have not have made an impression on me because I don't forget faces and names and stuff. I'm pretty. So obviously, you and I never interjected any conversation.
No, we probably didn't. You were in the back.
Yeah, well, therein lies the problem. So how can I know somebody who was at the seminar who I never? Right.
Yeah.
So
see, we passed each other many times. I recognize your voice though. I heard you speak from the back. We probably did interact, but we didn't introduce ourselves.
Right. What's your first name?
Patrice.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. You're not ringing a bell.
I guarantee you guys hook up again and it'll all ring true. But yeah, anyway, so what are you thinking of how things are going right now, Peter? Pretty good comments, huh?
Well, I actually come in just the last couple minutes. I was actually reading on Bond, of course, my favorite subject. So what was the conversation in reference to? So you'll have to fill me in because I come in the back door here.
Well, we've just been talking about Patrice's experience with Divine Province, how she found her way there, and all the different things that have happened with regards to using the Divine Province ID and in all manner of ways, and how much fun it's been since you left the seminar with the ID.
Very good. Well, I've had a couple successes along the way. So, yeah, the postmaster down here in local Podunk, they have no problems with cashing their postal money orders with my ID. It doesn't have to be government ID, so they just look for digits, and they're happy that they got some digits. I don't know who they're going to send the bill to, because that's the new tracking scam for the American people is the postal money orders. And if you just have the fiction ID, that's what they're drafting on the back of the instrument. So it's another traceable revenue source for a taxable event. You got to love all these clowns under the guise of somebody's been printing up bogus money orders. We're now tracing even the cashing of money orders. But I don't think they're going to be tracking nothing on mine. It'll go to JT at the front door, and yeah, well, it's not a taxable event.
Yeah, perfect.
That's a taxable event.
Yeah. Well, that's what I say. Everything you use, they have a first lien on those FRNs, and this is what they're trying to lay claim to. So this is going nowhere. I just got some digits. It's got like a bunch of zeros and a 0052 in there because I was a 50-second guy through the front line on getting international ID, and that's all that references. So you got to love it.
Oh, look at you, Divine 7. You got the Divine 7 number.
Ah, she's got 7. Lucky 7.
There you go. No, 5-2. It's 7. What number did you get, Patrice?
You mean the last 2 numbers? The numbers at the end? I think mine is 69. I'd have to look.
Oh, yeah.
The magic.
You got.
I'm not touching this one with a 10-foot pole. I can't even go here. Hey, you really opened up the door on this. Yeah, the Magic 69. Yeah, I'm not even going there. That was a Navy thing.
Okay, all right.
It's actually
right. Well, Peter, what's happening with the insurance cards? Because on James's call the other night, he was saying that with the new website going up and the new method and streamlining everything to make it really easy, when you get the ID, the insurance card comes. But for those of us who were at the seminar, insurance cards were not at the ready. Are you guys going to be mailing out insurance cards to all of us that already have the IDs?
I'm not mailing out nothing. Hey, sweetheart, I'm at the back of the bus finding out this information just like you are. What do you think? I'm sitting over in the office now. I do have.
I thought you were on deck. I thought you were cool. What's going on?
I'm not binded at the hip with anybody. I'm over here in no man's land in the South, you know.
Okay. I thought you were on deck. That's all. Bobby.
See, you're digging for information that I can't give. So guess what? You're gonna find out when you find out.
Yes.
And something else I'm loving about the whole idea of the new web page is it's not quite ready yet, guys. So sit tight. It's all good. But the way things are being streamlined, I can see exactly what direction they're going, and it is a beautiful delivery of information into the Ethernet, where there is no plausible deniability, and it's beautiful.
Right.
Yeah, I'm real excited about it. As a matter of fact, I do have my hitch tagged up to the master webmaster over there. He's ex-Navy, just like me. You gotta love this. 2 seagoing landlubbers that are now going to become landlubbers, and we were working for the Admiralty, literally for the U.S. Canoe Club.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I call the Navy. I was truly in the Admiralty for real. You got to love this. You got 2 Navy guys bringing everybody back to land. I mean, it just doesn't get any weirder than this.
Oh, that was beautiful. The U.S. Canoe Club. That's friggin' awesome. Well, hey, you got Navy and Air Force here, so that's awesome.
Cool.
That's too funny. It's amazing. Both you guys can talk up a storm, and now I got you together, and everything is quiet. Do I got to take the rest of the show here?
Yeah, you got to take the rest. Right, we're being respectful of the space now.
Oh no. Some more wins, guys. How about some more wins? Even maybe share something again, Patrice, in case people have tuned in a bit later.
Yeah, tell me, share with me, Patrice. I didn't get the nickel tour.
Okay, so I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, Peter, and those who came in late will listen to it also. Basically, when I left the seminar, before leaving the seminar, what I did was I tried to take some of the action items. Us good military people, we always have action items, right? So James would say things all along the way. Well, do this or try this, or and I would write them down on my little pad, and I'd go, okay, that's what I need to do. And before Sunday was out, I had a checklist, and so I was like, okay. So I was there through Sunday night, and I didn't really leave until Monday. And a lot of people were leaving, they flew or whatever, but I had the luxury of leaving when I wanted because I had driven. And so I went to the Office Max and made copies of everything. I made copies of the ID, made copies of the order, made copies of the Title 18, combed through some of the documents that were on the trip that you guys were passing out. And then I set about making my first draft of my seal because James had said, JP said, everybody should try to make their own seal, your symbol. You can get a coat of arms, you can look at your name, there's different things you can do, but you need to create something, be creative about that identity, right? Make your own stamp and put it on these documents. Because people were saying, I don't know if you recall, but there were a lot of questions and answers during that period, but one of the questions that came up was, do we use the Postmaster General's seal? Because, when James signs, he's got that the seal at the bottom, and he signs through it, and he was telling us to sign through with the gold pen, and you too will be like gold. So, you know, all these little things he would sprinkle in, which were kind of funny and true, and sort of either you got it or you didn't. And so I made my seal. I sat in my room on the computer, and I made the copies, and I drafted up the next morning at coffee. And I got on the road, and I drove to New England, and I mailed off my first notices. I mailed off 5 notices Monday morning. The first thing out of that.
Wow! Hey, yeah. Well, you beat me and Mike to the punchline. But we do have it all set up for drafting for people to use the technology. We're actually going to put it in a format for everybody to understand in a minute.
Right, and I used my seal, used the template that James had given us off the chip, modified it for the people that I was noticing, and my name and other things that needed to be changed. Dropped in my seal where he had his, and at the bottom right, and signed through, and set them off in the mail. And then when I took care of some business in New England, and then I used the ID successfully on my return trip to the mountains, to rent a car, get a hotel, change a phone contract. Everybody wants ID. I showed them the ID, not a problem. I rented a budget truck with the international driver's permit, not a problem. He didn't even blink. Didn't even blink. Yeah, so when I left the seminar, Peter,
didn't I tell you?
I didn't look back. I'm telling you, man, when I left, I didn't look back. That was it. I emptied the ID out of my wallet, put those 2 in, and since that time period, I have not looked back at all. And and so you know, at the post office, everything. So any place I go, I just show that ID, and I've had no problems. You know, I had one, and then I got a little bolder, so I was heading west, and before I headed west, I mailed off about halfway back. I mailed off another 5 notices, and then another 10 to chief of police, mayor, county sheriff, people like, oh, I travel in your area, or I'm hanging out in your county, because I've been traveling all summer. You missed the whole sort of lead up into how I came to the, you know, on sabbatical. You know, Kate was talking about camping for 2 months. I've been camping, if that's the operative word, for 5 months. So I've been, you know, I made a big leap of faith. And so I mailed off more notices before I got back to where I had left to come to the seminar, because I had been living in this like fear space, weird, looking over my shoulder, camping, nervous, squirrely, you know, and everything changed. Everything. The whole shift. Boom. When I left that seminar, used those IDs, started sending notices, and have not looked back.
And tell them about the cop. Tell them about the cop.
Oh, yeah, the one cop. You're the one cop. I'm sitting in the parking lot, and you know, and then they had just gotten the notices, maybe his boss or whatever, that the chief of police and the town mayor. And that day, I mean, like, you know, it was according to my mail, according to the tracking, they had gotten it that morning. And by that afternoon, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in the parking lot. They were looking for a coffee shop to, you know, I'm a Wi-Fi junkie, so I use my computer all the time. And he pulls up, you know, I hadn't even gotten out of my car, I was just sitting in my car, going through papers and looking for he pulls up beside me in the lot, rolls down his window, and, you know, so I roll down mine, and I'm like, yes. And he looks at me with a big old smile on his face, and he says, welcome to town, you know, and I said, okay, thank you. And I said, and you are? He said, Officer Smith. And I'm like, yes, okay, Officer Smith.
Damn.
Right, yeah, and I'm like, he goes, you pay attention to the roads around here. I said, I will do that. And he goes, and welcome to town. And off he drove. That was it. He didn't say we got your letter. He didn't say I know who you are. He didn't say we already pegged you. Nothing. But they know who I am. Believe me.
Perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Okay, Peter.
Now, so how did you integrate this conversation with him, and why did he stop you in the first place? He just wanted to give you some kisses or something?
He didn't stop me. I was sitting in the parking lot. He didn't stop me. He just pulled up.
Okay.
I was sitting in the parking lot, and he pulled up next to me and rolled his window down, like pulled up window to window, like he oriented, you know, we were facing each other driver's side to driver's side, and he rolled his window down, and I thought, okay, he wants to talk to me, so I rolled my window down. He didn't get out of his car. He just rolled his window down. And I'm like, hi, you know, and then he said, welcome to town. And I was like, I know the timing was to the letter, to the notice, totally. And also a part that I didn't mention earlier, Kate, was I had noticed the next town over also, because I have a P.O. box in another town that's about 10 miles from here. I left to go check my box because I'd been away for 2 weeks. I'd been on the road for 2.5 weeks, driving out there, being at the seminar, spending time in New England. I stopped in the Midwest to see my mother, and then so I'd been gone for 2-3 weeks, from during all of this time period. So I said, well, I need to go check my box to see what's in the box. No sooner did I, an hour later, drive to town, to another town 10 miles away that I had also noticed the mayor and the chief of police and what have you. I didn't even get out of my car. I pulled up. I did not even get out, and the police officer cruised by, looked at me, turned the corner, didn't stop me. They just took notice of me. I was like, to the minute. Like, it's totally obvious, right? To the minute. I didn't get out of my car, and he cruised the corner. Same day, same notice day, same event.
Wow.
Nothing. But in the past, if cops had cruised me like that, or they pulled up slowly, or looked, checked the plates and then drove, I would have felt totally, hypervigilant, or worried that they're scoping me, or they're getting ready to get me. I would have had a totally different fear-based experience. This experience was more like, oh, he's taking note of me, and I feel protected. He's taking note of me because he wants to be sure of who I am. He's taking note of me because they got my notice of who I am. So
cool.
I'm like, this is a very different look and feel and touch to the whole cops are cruising.
Right.
Thing,
it wasn't
right?
a harassment or trying to breach your castle. It was
No, this is about recognizing.
This
is recognizing being that's walking around in the flesh suit. This is about stopping and putting into action that ethereal quality that I speak of, and it wasn't a fluke, and it's not quite as physical as people think it is. When you change your mind and universe hears, and you now play at a different level. You now play at the ethereal level.
Yeah, and that's what it was. And I had left out that second encounter, Kate, earlier in the talk, but I did have that second encounter on that same day of the welcome. This second cop in the other town didn't pull up and physically welcome me and smile with a big Cheshire cat grin like this cop that he was playing. The first one was playing with me, obviously. The second one did take notice, but he did so unobtrusively. He wasn't. I don't think he intended to spoof me or scare me. He just, because it didn't feel that way at all. Whereas, where I had come from, if a cop had done me that way, something's waiting for me around the corner. That, right? So this had a very different feel to it. This was just like, oh, there she is. And then he went, like noticing me, like knowing who I am. It was very different. Very, very, very different feel to it.
Yeah, and again, what's happening, and I'm sure you can both attest to this, I've seen it so many times myself now, the watchers, as I've referred to them, the dark energies that are trying to mess with things, are now being watched. And there are a lot of things coming into play now where people are losing the fear, finally, getting out of the fear paradigm. And I'm not talking to everybody. This is not about everybody getting out of that. It's just having enough. And there are more than enough of us now, and that's why this game is changing to a level that's going to be astonishingly beautiful.
Yes. Oh, I can feel it. I mean, you guys talk about it. It's growing. The notices, again, Peter James had said at the seminar, if every one of you in this room can at least send out 10 notices that, there's 200 people in the room, we get to 2,000 immediately. If you guys send out 20 each, we double that to 4,000. And so, that was clear to me quickly that I needed to do my part. And I've already sent 25 notices in 3 different states, and I intend to send more. I'm going to just keep sending more. I'm going to change that to be a sort of generalized thing.
Right. Kate, when I come to the realization on Patrice?
Yes.
She speaks 10 times faster than I am, and I'm a pretty damn fast talker from Yankee.
Actually,
she tried to slow me down. She tried to slow me down early in the radio show, but I think she gave up on it.
I said, hey, I met my match. This girl talks faster than I do. I thought I was the fastest gun in the East, and this girl's making me look like I'm on Prozac.
What we secretly agreed to before the show started was I wanted to get 4 hours of information into 2, and she's doing awesome, huh?
Oh yeah. She must have done a line of crystal or something because she's in hyperspace.
But it's all
my
good.
Extra cup of coffee. Yeah, my extra cup of coffee before I left the Wi-Fi so I could sit warm, and I had this beautiful family of deers go prancing across me as a great symbol right before the show started, and I was telling Kate about that. And basically, Peter, what I'm saying about the notices and what I've been evolving with the notices is that I'm like, wow, this is working at a local level. What if I generalize it and sort of address that question that came up? Why can't we tell everybody in the country? And, James's message about we need to educate. And he's like, I can't be the only one to do it. We have to educate them about all of us. And because we're growing. And so he's keeping the roles, right? He's keeping the roles. We're growing membership and everything like that, right?
Well, let me share something with you. Michael and I have already posted a list for federal, state, and local. We actually have our developed list. Matter of fact, now you got me motivated. I guess I'm going to be posting out about 15 on Monday because we already got the list. He just sent it to me yesterday. I said, okay, this is cool. And don't mess around. We'll deal with the lower echelon, but we definitely want to go to the top of the boat too because we ain't afraid of no ghosts. We're here and it's all good.
Yes, but what you missed earlier, Peter, and that's great that you're doing it at the top because someone had asked that question, can't we educate? Because we need to educate from the top. But most of the change that I've ever understood happens the most effectively is when it comes from the top, and it also comes from the grassroots level. And one of the things that James has been talking about is that you have to live and work and breathe and connect and relate to the people in your local community. And since we all left the seminar and scattered across the country again, at the local level is where it's very personal. And so we do need to take ownership of that and take responsibility for educating at a local level, while you guys or anybody who can contribute, like me, can also educate at the larger level. So I'll educate at my local level, but I'll also educate at the state or any other state that I travel through and visit friends and family in. I'm like, I'm coming to town. This is who I am. And I know
5 minutes
before I show up.
5 minutes. 5 minutes left.
Okay, so Peter, when you say I have the list, this is something that right before you came on, I was telling Kate that the listeners and new people, and we get overwhelmed, we get confused, and you guys say things you take for granted. Something as simple as I have the list confuses the listeners. Like, I think I know what you're talking about, and I'm a little bit, further down the road with you guys than maybe the listeners who haven't left yet, and I have no clue what list you're talking about. When you say I posted the list, can you tell us what the list means, what it is, what's on the list, and how it should be used?
Yeah, like I say, it's federal. We're going to deal with the upper echelon.
Federal what?
Federal, like the clowns at the circus at the top of the pecking order, like the IRS, folks like that. It's always good for them to get the memo. If they don't get the memo, they don't have a clue. So
right, that's
we're not skulking around corners here. It's all good. I'm here.
Right.
I got some love and hugs for you. We're sharing the love, and also your state governor, your SOS. That's the state level. And your top share of dogs in your county, that type of stuff. That's local. And we actually have Michael has created a list. He's listening right now, and he's the man. So he posted the list. I have the list, and we can share this list because they can get everybody's list is going to be a little different, but it's going to be the same. I.e., every state has a governor, every state has a secretary of state, or you don't even have to go to the governor, but you can go to the state attorney general. We want everybody in the loop. DMV, we're even talking about, sending it off to the head of the DMV.
Right, I was doing chief of the state police. There's 50 state police chiefs. Because they put it on their computers and they notify their sheriffs and everybody. So Michael
hit that too. So this is good.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Hey guys, we got 3 minutes here, so I'll give you each a minute to wrap up, and I'll ding the dong for you. I will say thank you. Yeah, I know, isn't it funny?
Yeah, that really come out good. Hey, Patrice, do I have your information?
Yes.
Do I have do you have? Well, you know where to find me. You know where to go. Just go to the Help Me page at Sui Juris and send me an email, and I will get up with you.
Yes, and Kate has my email, so she can send you. Kate, you have my permission to send him my email direct. So if you want to go ahead and do that, make it quick. That's fine. And my only takeaway, once again, Kate, I don't even need a minute for it, but I'll say it 100 times if I say it once. If I can do it, you can too.
That's right.
Beautifully put. Well, we got 2 minutes left here. I'll do a little sign off. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to Outside the Box here on Freedom Reigns Blog Talk Radio. What an awesome evening with you, Patrice, and thank you so much, Peter, for showing up. I'm so very glad. All of the paper or information that anyone needs, stuff that I talk about, including the phone or the email you used around with that audio of JT, is up on my blog page, or if it isn't, it will be shortly, at www.loveovermind.wordpress.com. And it's important that people know that so they can get there. I always wait for her to say 90 seconds. Anyway, so all the information's there, and I urge people to show up. And again, Patrice, we got 1 minute, so if you say a quick bye, and Peter as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me. It was an honor and a pleasure to join you tonight, Kate. I've been listening to you guys, and I feel so honored to be invited to speak or share or just be on the air. I was surprised when you said, yeah, come on. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Thank you so much for that, opportunity to be here tonight and share with anybody who's listening. And if they have questions or they write to you and they want to connect with me, feel free to share my contact information with them. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm like Peter. I'm not skulking or hiding or anything. I'm out here. I'm doing it. Let's go.
Well, thanks,
thank
Patrice.
you.
Thank
Kate,
you.
Kate, I'll get up with you later. Patrice, I will definitely get up with you later once I get your email, and we will let's get together on Skype too, and we'll share some ideas.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, thank you both, guys. We got 15 seconds. I'll hook you guys up right after the show. Again, thanks for listening to Outside the Box. I'm your host, Kate of Gaia. Tune in next Wednesday, 7 to 9, Freedom Reigns Blog Talk Radio. Much love to all, and to all, good night.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye.
What was that?
Hello?
Okay. No.
Yeah,
No, I'm still on.
Yeah, it takes a second.
You can do that by a pattern of practice, which shows by the pattern that they intend to do it again, or by codified practices, which are written in their manuals, like Guardian and Light and practice manuals, or foreclosure manuals and things like that, where they intend to follow what was written, the prescriptive guidance is written, or in training when they provide training to the Bar Association or the bench, they provide these trainings. And there was a video that went out around today by a judge that's speaking out now in California about how she was trained to make those rulings, and she realizes it was a mistake, and she's left the bench, and she's a judge whistleblower, and she's like, yeah, we were trained to make these bad rulings. So, there's 3 different ways that you can prove intent, and once you've proven intent, that's what's deliberate. That's where you can show that it was deliberate harm. That's where it becomes criminal, and not some sort of by accident or some sort of civil bond thing, well, we didn't mean to it, you were harmed, but it was inadvertent harm. No, this is deliberate harm that you, Kay, and James Thomas, and everyone else who's been paving the way, and those of us like me who are whistleblowers, and then we get retaliated on, and we kind of like retreat and regroup, and then we come out again and start whistleblowing. And it's harmful. It's deliberate harm that they do, and that's what makes it criminal. And
I couldn't agree more with you, hon. And here's the thing, when you were talking about all of the hands that went up in the room, the first thing I'd be doing is standing at the podium and looking for anyone that didn't have their hand up, and then I'd be kicking their asses out. No, you need to get out and live a little before you join this club.
Right, like you're right. You haven't done, any of the foundational training if you haven't been, wiped, on the floor of several courtrooms several times, many times too many to count, So, years. These things go on for years, these court cases, as you know. And then we find one another. Those of us of sort of like harm go, oh, that happened to you too, and then we knock heads and we start having this sort of meeting of the minds. But you guys have taken it to a whole nother level. I want to talk about, I don't know if you're ready for me to talk about, what happened. There was this, I went through that, and then myself processing, getting to where I am today on your radio show, talking about if I did it, you can do it too. So I've made a lot of very strong medicine choices, and if someone like me can do it, you listeners out there, can do it too. It was a long path. You know, this judge set a date. I was supposed to reappear in June for review, blah, 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 and I had filed a motion 30 days out to appear telephonically. I said, I'm going on sabbatical. It's May. I'm going away for the summer. I'm going on to summer sabbatical. I'm not working on my graduate studies. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to take summer work or do whatever, or hike or bike or go on retreat or, you know, stare at the moon or do whatever I'm going to do for the summer. It's my prerogative. Well, don't you know that I attempted to call in from somewhere in Nebraska on my travels for the last 4 or 5 months. I've logged over 12,000 miles and been in probably 20 states. And I was there, and I had filed a motion to appear telephonically. I said, I'm on travel. I'm away for the summer. My stuff's in storage. I'm not, you know.
Hey, Patrice.
Yes.
Patrice.
Yes.
I need you to breathe, hon. I need you to slow down. People are missing
what
you're
sorry.
saying.
Yeah.
I know. You know what? I can feel your.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I do it too. So I can feel your energy from here. We got 2 hours, hon. It's all yours.
Okay. I can slow down. That's good.
Slow it down, Officer Decommissioned.
Okay, slow down. You know, I wish I'd been on fire for a while.
I know. I wanted to let you go for a little bit so that you can get the energy out. But
plus I'm not accustomed to being on the radio like you are. So, like to a blind audience, it's kind of new to me. So I called in. She would not let me call in. I called in to find out what number I should be dialing so I could appear in court telephonically, you know, from remotely, because it was not possible for me to be there in person. And she said I did not have permission to leave the state. And that unless I show up in person to argue, I heard James Thomas on the radio show, I don't know, maybe earlier in the year, and tucked him away and went, wow, there's something powerful going on with that. And then he kind of disappeared for a while, which now I know he was doing all of that work, which led to the seminar, which is kind of why he was off radar for a while to people. And then everything converged for me, and it became possible for me to go to that seminar. I drove 2,000 miles, slept in my car. I'd already been on this sort of hardship escape from being, you know, under total judicial tyranny earlier in the year. And, you know, the last act of this judge was to, you know, bond me, you know, pretty much tell me I had to live like a fugitive. And she registered me as dangerous to society in the statewide Ronco system. And I said, on what grounds? I have no criminal record. I've done nothing but open my mouth. And, you know, you're going to register me, falsely register me, by the way, after I had evidentiary hearings and proved the fraud in the court. And instead of vacating it, you're going to extend it for 3 years maximum and register me as a danger to society. And I have to live looking over my shoulder where I go and live like a fugitive, because at any time your minions can falsely violate me. If you falsely filed me, then you can manufacture a false violation. If you have a false violation, you can falsely arrest me. If you falsely arrest me, then you're going to start putting felonies and everything else on my record. So I'm like, you know, why would I subject myself to that? I do not consent. I don't agree. I'm not going to live like that. There are 49 other states in the United States for me to go live, and I don't need to live in your state under your registry, under your tyranny. I'm not going to do it. And so I left Kate, and she had the nerve. There was a review. She picked a review date, and I was supposed to be back in June. And I instead went on summer sabbatical, because for the last 3 years I've been working on my PhD in engineering. You know, I'm a displaced veteran. I did, believe it or not, serve in uniform. I was a uniformed military officer at one time who believed I was defending the Constitution and serving as an agent of peace, but that was not really what it all turned out to be. So I've, you know, shed those clothes, shed that uniform, and shed that thinking in pretty short order. And I actually resigned my commission a few years ago and got out, which was part of this, finding.
Hey, and welcome to Outside the Box. Here we are on Friday night, Blog Talk Radio with Freedom Reigns Radio. I'm your host, Kate of Gaia. You're listening to Outside the Box, and we're going to have one hell of a show tonight. And I'm trusting that that is Patrice that has called in on the line, so I'm going to make make the line hot, and let's see if it's you. Just wait for it. There you are.
Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I'm in a good
I can
spot.
hear you now. It's all good, love. Anyway, we're going to have a hell of a show tonight. We're waiting for Tony to try to get on here. He's been having internet issues in the UK where he's apparently getting knocked out for 10 minutes at a time. And I'm just hoping that actually people hear me because I have one hell of a time. You know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. You know, I was listening to the audio that you sent out by James Thomas. That was a good one to get caught up on. What he's got going on is good. The recent one that you sent out, they had a meeting, and he was talking, and he was saying a lot of things that reminders to people. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I just took you off my headset for hearing. I've got.
Because you're breaking up. You're breaking up to me. You sound choppy to me, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, you know the routine here, right?
Always interference.
Always. They don't like me talking, hon.
Right.
It's all good. You're coming through loud and clear, so that's all good.
Okay, that is good. I'm on a good connection right now. I'll just sit put. I saw a beautiful little fawn just ran across the park, and then shortly after her mother came and looked for her, so that was kind of a sweet little thing. So,
that's a beautiful...
I'm in a good spot. I'm in a good spot. I'll sit right here.
Excellent. So what's stuff been going on this week? You're on my email, so you're getting caught up with stuff in the now as it comes to me with that Meads versus Meads thing that and I say thing very loosely that Justice Rook, what a name, put out as a bit of hit piece, not a bit, as an attempt to undermine those that have got this game and are taking it to a whole new level that they're not liking, and they're running scared. They tipped their hand on this one. Yep,
I did read that. I read that today. That was good.
Yeah, and that was actually my essay from Wednesday that I had to fight to get through. That was my take on the Mead versus Meads, and in that forgive them not. They do know what they do, and
They do. As a matter of fact, I wrote a thing today. I was reading that, and the Uniform Bond Code was a good document, and I was like, okay, there's the whole section in there about it being civil or criminal, and I've been arguing this point, when I was at war with the courts. Of course, like all of us, we come through this war zone thing. I remember at the seminar last month in Virginia with James Thomas, and at one point he said, how many here have ever have had some sort of problem in the courts? Every hand in the room went up. We wouldn't have been there if we hadn't if we hadn't been somehow gone through this fire, right? There's this leaping off of where you are trying to get to where you're going, and I was always arguing that the civil versus criminal, that it's criminal because it's deliberate. When they deliberately intend to harm you, that's what makes it criminal. So how do you prove the intent? Okay, there's a couple